Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ninth day of Christmas. I'm Jonathan Peters, and I'm the Chief Motivation Officer at Sententia Gamification. Monica is joining us shortly. And today we're looking at ninth day of Christmas. So we have 9 ladies dancing. So nine's an interesting number. Number of, I believe it's renewal, although I think the piece that went out today was saying the turnaround. So it's also very interesting. And Monica can tell us more about this.
Hey everyone, welcome to the ninth day of Christmas. So, ladies dancing, I wrote a blog. Well, actually, Jonathan wrote the blog. I shared his blog on his study on movement and learning. And what was one thing that really stood out to me in your blog, Jonathan, was that for millions of years we learned by moving. We were out doing something, and it's only been a couple hundred years that we made children, Jonathan's words were sit down, shut up, and read a book. And it's not natural for us in learning. So, ladies dancing, 9 is the symbol for turnaround. So, I thought today would be a good day to turn around our thinking. And our free gift today is our Think Big ebook, which challenges you to just think about how you're thinking and where you're spending your time. And are you spending your time on that which is most important to you, that you identify is most important to you, not what I say, Jonathan says, your boss says, anyone else says, what you identify as most important. So, Jonathan, I know we talked a lot yesterday in the 8 Maids of Milking about movement. And I was also thinking that as we think about our thinking and thinking differently, there was one of the days that we did this week, and I'll have to recall it, where we specifically talked about the spotlight fallacy. It was status. On Status Day, which was the swans, 7 swans of swimming, because swans were a status symbol in the 18th century. Because they're rare, you had to like brand them that they belonged to you. Up until 1998, it was still considered a treasonous act to kill somebody else's swan in England. So pretty serious stuff. So high status symbol. But I was joking about when I lost my status on one of the airlines, and I felt like everyone was looking at me and thinking I was just some average woman traveling on vacation and not a serious businesswoman traveling. And that's called a spotlight fallacy, where you think that people are paying more attention to you than they really are. So today I wanted us to focus on the idea of movement in learning, but from the perspective of how much are we not doing that as we design learning programs for adults. How many of our learning programs are we designing that they are just going to sit at a computer, even for any length of time? And we think because it's asynchronous e-learning that that's all we can ask them to do. And I'm reminded of that wonderful program that Susan McMenamin designed, where she included movement away from the screen to help build empathy in the audience she was training for the audience that they would be serving, which was like a young millennial audience, was providing customer care to the average age was 75 plus. So she developed this brilliant program that is primarily e-learning, but then the students also have to get up and move away from the computer to experience some of the difficulty that aging citizens experience, like taping your fingers together and trying to button your shirt, or putting glasses on and taping your fingers together and trying to count out your pills into your little pill vitamin container. On the emotional side of things, losing your best friend, your spouse of 50 years is declining in health, all those empathy building activities that we can't necessarily get from the screen and the computer. So that's one of the things I want us to be thinking about. But along with that, I have been working on a critical thinking for professional women course that's taken me much longer to design than I had anticipated, because the deeper I dive in my design, the more critical it has like it keeps rising further and further up. This is not just to sit down and go through and check items off, done, 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 done. If we're really going to think differently, that means we got to get a little bit uncomfortable, because we're perfectly comfortable in what we call the comfort zone, right? Where we know how to do things, but we want to push ourselves to get into that zone of concern where we don't necessarily know how to do things. So here are some fallacy and biases card. Go ahead and pick one, Jonathan.
All right. What's the difference?
Well, I think these are fallacies.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a fallacy called the fallacy, presuming that because a claim has been poorly argued or a fallacy has been made, that it is necessarily wrong. I can't read that small. Can you read the small stuff?
All right. Recognizing that Amanda had committed a fallacy and arguing that she should eat healthy food because a nutritionist said it was popular, Elise said we should therefore eat bacon double cheeseburger every day.
Because
Amanda argued that they should eat healthy because the nutritionist said it was popular.
Is not the reason we should eat healthy. So that's a fallacy. So then adding a fallacy on top of that is
fallacy, well, because bacon double cheeseburgers are also popular.
True. Very true, right? So if we're just going to eat popular food, then we should eat bacon double cheeseburgers, right? So that's a fallacy. Okay, here are biases. Go ahead and pick a bias. What does that say?
Bystander effect.
The bystander effect. You presume someone else is going to do something in an emergency situation.
When something terrible is happening in a public setting, we can experience a kind of shock and mental paralysis. If there's an emergency situation, presume to be the one who will help.
Okay, so that's why, like when we teach like safety or CPR, you're supposed to identify somebody to take action. Like you go call 911, you go get the whatever the shocker thing's called, right? So we identify an individual to go do it because that bystander effect kicks in, that we think someone else will take care of it. And this is not an emergency situation, but the same kind of bias thinking falls into place in our learning programs, because we often think, well, somebody smarter than us would have already identified this if it was really necessary. And so like if our chief learning officer or if our training manager has not identified something specific that we think is important, we think we have that fallacy that, well, someone else would have taken care of this. And I always like to equate that to, not to malign any individual business, but like Blockbuster videos, right? There was a day when Blockbuster was master of the universe. And as they were declining, I imagine that many of their employees thought, well, somebody smarter than me knows about this and is taking care of it. But of course, they closed up their doors, and I was living just outside of Dallas in the little town where it was located when they closed. And that was almost 800 people who lost their job just at that one location. So all of that to say is we've got these fallacies and biases in our thinking. And as soon as we think we don't have them, that's a bias and a fallacy in your thinking. In fact, our thinking is so flawed as human beings that Jonathan referenced Daniel Kahneman's book yesterday, Thinking Fast and Slow, that we think with reason. We think with logic, and we think with emotion, and we make decisions based on emotion. And we've got scads of these fallacies and biases that we use to reinforce our decision making when in fact they're not logical. So I've been having a blast designing this critical thinking course, of course, taking longer than I should have, because I want to make sure that we actually get to experience these biases and fallacies so that we can recognize them when they're happening to us. And they happen all the time. They happen when we read or watch the news. They happen when we listen to, again, not maligning any individual, but a politician or a pastor or a manager or somebody who wants to influence you to make the decision they want you to make. Chances are really good they've peppered their message with language that includes some kind of bias thinking or some kind of critical thinking fallacy, that if we just go along with it without stepping back and thinking, what are they actually saying here? I'm not going to accuse them of lying, but have they said it differently so that what appears to be true is not actually true? You have that book? Yeah. It's one of my all-time favorite, Thinking Fast and Slow. Daniel Kahneman's a behavioral scientist. He won two Nobel Prizes now, I think. And that book is a little bit dense, but it's got short chapters, and each chapter has really significant ideas in each. So I read it chapter by chapter by chapter, and it was like just little modules, little micro learning, because there was so much great content that kept blowing my mind along the way. So all that to say, now I got these cards. These are Creative Commons cards. They're called, it's called Critical Thinking cards. And I ordered them online, and the organization that sells them, can you see the website on here, Jonathan? It's called is it right there? Very, 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 very small. No.
Suitable for 8 and above.
Yeah. Your fallacy. Oh, here. No, that's not it either. I know I've seen it printed somewhere, but they're called, you take a look at the picture. If you do critical thinking cards and you Google that, show them the picture again. It looks like,
it says your logical fallacy is .com.
Your logical fallacy is .com. So can't remember the price point on them. Maybe it was probably under $40, but just been a blast to really study these. I take them with me now when I'm on faculty for American Management Association. So when I go and work with young leaders, and we get to any section about our belief versus what our employees' belief is about the working conditions, and I have us play with some fallacies and biases just so we can see where our own blinders might be. And again, I'll go back to the moment you think you don't have any is the moment that you're probably going to be compromised in your decision making, because we all have them. And reality is our brain developed these biases and fallacies as a shortcut, because if we had to critically think through every single decision we made all day long, we wouldn't be able to move. So our brain makes shortcuts based on previous experience. I've done this before. This is a routine. So we can make quick decisions. But when we have to make important decisions that are new or different, or, you get that gut check that you think, well, I don't know. It sounds logical. And is it logical? And if we're questioning, we should probably go double check. All that, again, to say is that we get into habits because it saves us time. Good habits are good for us. It makes us very efficient. We can move quickly, make quick decisions, get things done, move on to the next. Where we get into trouble is where we're operating in that routine, and Kahneman calls it system one thinking, where it's just real like on autopilot. When we're in that system one thinking, when we really should be stopping to evaluate, which he calls system two thinking, that's where we get into trouble. So that's what I want us to be thinking about as we're doing 9 ladies dancing and doing a turnaround, because it's the number 9 is the number for turnaround, and to turn around and look a different way as far as what are we putting into our learning programs that we're putting in there because it's the way it's always been done. Or the CEO insists that that's the way he or she learns, so that's the way our current learners should learn, which is a fallacy. Or we pay them to know this information so they'll learn it. That's another huge fallacy. You're paying everybody. Some people know it, some people don't. Some people do it, some people don't. You're still paying everybody. So the belief that we're paying them is going to work is a fallacy, right? So anytime that as we're approaching things and we're doing things because somebody said that's the way we've got to do it, it's time for us to put on the brakes, do a turnaround and say, what's really going on here? And is it time for us to change the way we've been doing things? And when I talk about that, it doesn't mean that I think you're doing something wrong. Maybe you are, but it could just be that things work till they don't work anymore. And then we've got to change it because it's no longer working. So we've got to change what we've been doing. What are you thinking about movement? He wants to go exercise.
Yep, that's as soon as we're done here.
In fact, Jonathan has built that into his workday. He takes his lunch break to go do some physical activity outside. So he'll go stand-up paddleboarding, kayaking, biking.
Biking today.
It's pretty windy out here, yeah. But he does it midday. So he's structured his day to take that break midday to go get that physical movement, whereas I'd prefer to just go take a nap, which, right? So which is better, go getting the physical movement or go taking a nap? Both can be healthy for us. But as we think about structuring your day for movement, structuring your learning for movement, probably we will need to do some adjustments in how we deliver. It's just different. Start thinking about doing that turnaround and looking at it from a different perspective. What else should we add, Jonathan?
So is there a way to, like in the example Monica gave earlier, is there a way to have them get up, move around, do something, reach for something, touch for something if in your learning, and start looking for those opportunities?
Yeah. And when we think about, I just was shuffling the deck here, but read this one, Jonathan. When we don't want to make the change, this is the bias that's going to kick in right here. Go ahead.
Confirmation bias. Your favorite thing, your favorite things that confirm, geez, I can't read. Your favorite things that confirm your existing beliefs.
Good. So what does that mean?
So you are primed to see and agree with ideas that fit your perceptions and to ignore and dismiss information that conflicts with them.
To give an example.
This guy, Richard Feynman, said, the first principle is that you must not fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool.
But we all know that confirmation bias, right? Like as soon as somebody presents an alternate idea that we think, I don't think so, this is the way we've always done it. And look, they're doing it this way, they're doing it, that they've done it. So we will see and find examples that confirm our belief rather than looking and exploring and saying, what if the possibility is that might be the better way to do it? Should I be looking for examples of that rather than to confirm my bias that I already have in place? So if you're feeling like, no, I'm staying here, that's probably a confirmation bias going on. And we need to look at, well, perhaps I should explore something different. Perhaps it means something new will be open to me if I am willing to look at it from a different perspective. So happy 9th day of Christmas. I hope you're having a good new year so far. I know it's still holiday for many of us. Some schools are going back tomorrow or Wednesday. Other schools are going back next week. Work is going back for the most part tomorrow. Some is going back next week. But whatever your schedule looks like, I hope that you take this time as a time of refreshment and thinking and evaluating what you do want differently in 23, putting whatever is negative in the past behind, just letting it go, let it die, let it go. And then let's move forward and look forward to 23 and the new things that are going to happen as we turn around and take a new perspective on things. Happy 9th day of Christmas. Tomorrow is 10.
Lords a leaping.
12, drummers, drumming, 11, pipers, 10, lords a leaping. Ooh, more movement. Lots of movement in these last 5 days. Yes, most definitely. Probably because people were sitting around gorging themselves for the first 7 days. All right. So lots of movement in these last. All right. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone. Happy holidays. Thanks for being with us.